Hello and welcome to episode 90 of 10,000 Stitches podcast, a podcast all about the joys of knitting. My name is Andy and thanks for joining me this week. Feels weird to hit episode 90 because that means 100 is really close, which is a really weird thing to think about, so I'm just not going to think about it. Moving on. If you were looking for me / this podcast elsewhere on the internet, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Ravelry as Purlbug, Purlbug. You can find my blog at thepurlbug.com, and then we have the 10,000 Stitches podcast group on Ravelry. If you are looking for links to anything that I mention, like shops or patterns or whatnot kind of stuff, if you are watching this via the embedded video on the blog post or the Ravelry thread, everything will be linked right below the video. Also, something to mention. So on Ravelry, it doesn't have the option, like when you put in links, it does not have an option like to click a box that says open a new window, right? So on my blog, when I embed links, you just click on it and it should open up in a new tab or window depending on, kind of what you're looking at it on. But Ravelry doesn't have that. But if you are looking, if you're, clicking on a link on a computer at least, if you hit, on a Windows computer, if you hold down Control and then click, or on a Mac, Command and then click, that should open it up in a new window. Or if you're on a tablet, or phone, usually you can press and hold and it will bring up a little menu and you can say open a new tab or open a new window. So just a thought, because I really hate that where it's like you're in the middle of watching something and you want to click a link and then it just opens it in the window you're watching and you're like, no! So that's how you do that. Anyway, so if you're watching either of those two places, everything's linked below the video. If you're watching this on YouTube, in the description box below the video, there will be a link to the blog post. You can go there and then again find everything linked right below the video. Yeah, today is, what is today? Today is Sunday, March 18th, and this episode will go up on Tuesday, March 20th, which should be right around the first day of spring. I don't know exactly what day it is this year, but should be right around there. It's like the 20th or the 21st is the first day of spring. It's the vernal equinox. Pretty cool. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Otherwise, today's episode should be pretty normal. I have some finished objects, works in progress. I don't know if I have anything to talk about for what's coming up next, which I'll explain when I get there. I have no dyeing to show off, but I do have some new things, and question of the week, and knit along stuff, and then chit chat. So it should be pretty normal. Sorry if it seems a little bit all over the place. I didn't get a ton of sleep last night because last night was St. Patrick's Day. Well, yesterday was St. Patrick's Day, and my neighbors, who are horrible people, decided not just to have a party, because it's like, I don't want to be the old fuddy-duddy. I get it, right? Like, young people want to have fun and everything. I swear they were having a rave in their apartment. It was just so loud. And again, it's you know what? I don't want to be the fuddy-duddy about it, but it got to be midnight and there was still music playing so loud. I'm pretty sure it was downstairs in the apartment next door. So it's I shouldn't be able to hear that here, and yet I could. So I was just you've got to be kidding me. And so it got to the point where I actually called the cops on them, which is something I've never done before, but then the police never showed up, so there's that. But then they sort of seemed to have wrapped up the party, the music stopped, and I was like, oh, this is great. Except that then a whole bunch of drunk college kids decided to go outside and stand on the street right underneath my bedroom window, yelling, because of course they're drunk, and when you're drunk, you just yell. So that kept me up until about 1:30 in the morning. And then I wound up waking up at about 7 o'clock in the morning just on my own. So yeah, I'm a little bit tired, but whatever, such is life. Let's talk about some knitting now that I'm however far into the episode and haven't talked about any knitting. So, finished object. I don't think I showed these off as a finished object whenever I recorded last, because of course I didn't record last week because I was out of town. So I think that when I last recorded, these were not done. These are the little baby booties that I've showed off before. These are the Blue Steps baby booties, and I'm making these for a friend of mine, and it's not like I was holding on to them because I was waiting to show you guys the finished objects. I just have been forgetting to put them in the mail. So now I really do need to get them put in the mail because I have no excuse anymore. But yeah, these are them. Just a cute little baby booty pattern. The only changes I made to the pattern were that I used a US 2, which is a 2.75 millimeter needle instead of a US 1.5. Knit with a fingering weight yarn. I just used some leftover sock yarn that I had. Obviously a superwash yarn because it's for a baby. And yeah, I just think they are super cute, super easy, fun pattern. Highly recommend if you have need to make some baby booties. So yeah, I need to get these put in the mail, but you know, since I have them here, might as well show them off. Super cute little baby booties. So finished object. And that is the only thing I have that is completely finished. I have 2 half objects though, so let's sort of transition into my works in progress with some half objects. And they're both socks. So one of them, I don't know where this was when I showed it off last time because of course it's been a little while, but this is a pair of socks for Wesley, using what I'm going to call my man friend sock pattern. It's the same as the last pair of socks I made him, so I will link to that project on Ravelry in case you want the details, but I am planning on getting this pattern actually properly written up and published as a pattern, and these will be the samples. So it's a little bit dark, the yarn is a little bit dark, but this is sort of what it looks like. So it's this sort of gray-brown base color with these little bits of red in it. And the pattern itself, let's see if I can get close enough to show that off. The pattern itself is this sort of 1x1 broken rib pattern, which, you know, gives a lot of stretch, obviously. There we go. Which obviously gives a lot of stretch and also just gives a little bit of texture without being too fussy. And like I said, these are for Wesley. It's a 70 stitch sock that I'm knitting on a US size 0, so that's a 2 millimeter needle. Yeah, this one's done, obviously. And then the other one is, where's the other one? The other one's in this bag. The other one, I think I just got finished with the cuff and I am now working on the leg for it. So I just didn't have a ton of time to work on these because these were the socks that I've been working on at work, sort of like when I teach and stuff, and I just didn't get a ton of time to work on them this past week. So yeah, not a ton of progress, but I definitely should have it done by the next time I go to see Wesley, so that will be good. So that's half object number 1, and the yarn that this is on is, where's my label? There's my label. It is Yokogani Yarns on their Mon sock base, which is a 75/25 superwash merino nylon. And this colorway is Riverfish, which is a one-of-a-kind colorway that I got at Vogue Knitting Live back in January. So that's that. And then the other half object is my Paraphernalia socks. And these were kind of on my list of like socks that I wanted to make coming up relatively soon. And so these were my travel knitting for when I was gone over spring break. And I have one of them done, obviously. And yeah, the pattern is Paraphernalia, and it has this really beautiful sort of cable down the side of the foot. It's an asymmetric sort of pattern. So the cable does run down the side of the foot, not the center of the foot. So, so it's different on each sock. But yeah, I really, really love it. Here's a little bit closer look at the cable. So just a really, really fun cable pattern. This yarn is a 80/20 superwash merino, or not superwash merino, superwash Highland nylon blend, and it was dyed by me with coffee. So it's this really sort of beautiful creamy color. In the wrong light, it sort of looks butter colored, which is not bad, but it just, you know, it takes the right sort of light to really appreciate the color of it. But these are going to be for a friend of mine. So yeah, I'm super excited to get them done and send them out. I did a little bit shorter leg just because, I don't know, because this yarn, this base is a little bit short on yardage, so I didn't want to risk running out. So I figured I would make the leg a little bit shorter. So I wound up doing 3 total pattern repeats before the toe. And this is a 68 stitch sock, which I knit on US size 1s, which are a 2.25 millimeter needle. So that's the first one. This is the right sock of the pair. And then the left sock is here. And I just started doing the heel flap on this one. So like just a little while ago, I did like the first 2 rows of the heel flaps. So that's where I am on that one. Again, I really am enjoying this pattern, and it's not as if the cabling is super hard to do or super like brain intensive. I just haven't wound up having a ton of time to knit on them. But this is one of those fun patterns too, where sometimes like the inside of a sock can, I think, be almost as interesting as the outside pattern. And this is definitely one where you get that because sort of the background, you know, minus the cables, obviously, is this sort of 3x1 rib. And I just think the inside of the sock looks so nice. Like it just looks so neat and orderly. And even sort of where the cables are is like a really interesting pattern sort of on the inside. I don't know, maybe I'm the only one who looks at those things, but I thought that was really cool. Something else I did with this. So this pattern is a free pattern, which is why well, it's a free pattern, so I have no complaints about it, right? Like I don't like to complain about free patterns, but the charts are not super easy for me to read. And I think it's just because of like whatever software the pattern designer used. And again, I'm not complaining because it's free, but I find that they don't have enough contrast for me to be able to really see what's going on. And I don't feel bad showing the chart off because again, it's a free pattern. So this is sort of what the chart looks like. And let's see, focus. So you can see on there, the difference between knit and purl stitches is the knit stitches are those little vertical lines and the purl stitches are the little horizontal lines, which is fine, but like to me it's not enough contrast. So I actually wound up going through and I transposed the entire pattern into a format that I like, so that the empty boxes are knit stitches and the X's are purl stitches, and then I just sort of do these little abbreviations for the cables because I don't have a good way of doing that because I just use Google Sheets to do this. But I'm kind of torn as to like, because I think this would be a really helpful thing for other people who, like me, don't necessarily, wait, in focus. I'm trying to figure out if I'm in focus or not. Yeah, I must be. Okay. I think this could be really helpful for other people who maybe have a hard time, like who don't have great eyesight and have a hard time sort of distinguishing this pattern. So part of me is tempted to put this on my project page and then just say like, well, if you're interested, it's one of the pictures on the project page. And like part of me doesn't feel bad about that because it's a free pattern, but part of me would feel kind of bad about that because it's like, I don't want to claim like that I did it. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if I wind up doing that. But yeah, I did do that just for my own benefit because I found the chart to be kind of hard to read. So there's that. And I think also, yeah, so in the pattern, it just says when you get to the right sock. So this chart that's in the pattern is for the left sock. And then when you get to the right sock, it just says right sock is worked as mirror image to the left one. So there is no separate chart that mirror images that. So I actually did do it. So like I have mirror imaged charts for the left and right socks. You can actually see the colors represent the different cable crosses, so like the colors change. So I don't know, we'll see if I wind up putting that on my project page. But you know, I mean, otherwise, like I love the pattern and I love the results, but yeah, just that's my only like little complaint with it. And even that's not really a complaint because it's a solvable problem. Anyway, so that's my 2 sock works in progress, and yeah, I'm just gonna keep plugging away on those. And then in terms of my my other work in progress, I'm actually gonna save this clip really quick and then I'll show you my other work in progress and we'll, you know, do it that way. So my only other work in progress then is actually my granny stripe blanket, which I have been putting a lot of time into lately. I kind of had a patch where I wasn't working on it very much, which I mean is sort of how scrappy projects go. But then for whatever reason, when I came back from my spring break trip, I just really wanted to work on it. And I don't really know why. Like it wasn't even so much that I don't think it was even so much that I needed the brainless sort of aspect of it. I think I just needed something different. You know, like a different hand motion. I just needed something a little bit different because I was working on 2 pairs of socks and nothing else. So I thought I'd show it off because I have made a lot of progress, and I am currently on my last magic knot ball. So I'm gonna have to, you know, figure out what I'm gonna do when I wind up finishing this. I actually am thinking that I have a couple of like 50-gram skeins, like single orphan skeins, that I'm not sure that I want to make into socks. So I might just go ahead and put like an entire 50-gram skein in for the next thing after I finish this. And then, you know, maybe by the time I finish with that, I will have enough scraps again to make another magic knot ball, because I'm kind of running out of scraps. So we'll kind of see what happens there. But anyway, so that's that. So let's put that guy on the floor. So this is where I'm at right now. And I've mentioned this before, but I have, oh, I just pulled out my last stitch. Oops. Isn't that the great thing about crochet, though? I love that about crochet, is that it's like, well, whatever. I'll figure it out. So anyway, I have no idea how many I chained when I started this. I'm just following the sort of basic granny stripe blanket pattern, I guess. I do know that it's wide enough to go all the way across my bed, which is a full-size bed, and drape down a few inches on each side. So that's about how big it is. But yeah, this is it. It's kind of this is it. So yeah, I know that I put a progress keeper in here the last time I showed it off. So okay, there we go. So the last time I showed this off on the podcast, I put in this progress keeper here, so that I could, you know, show how much progress I made whenever it is that I showed it off again. So that is how much progress I've made. So yeah, decent amount. I would say I've at least doubled the amount of blanket that's on here. And I'm just really loving it. Like I said, it's just because it's something different, and it's been a little bit chilly lately. So we had those couple really nice weeks of weather, like at the end of February or something, where it was like super warm and super nice. And I knew at the time, I was like, it's not spring yet, right? Like, don't be fooled. It's not actually spring. It's going to get cold again. And it definitely did. And it's been cold. I mean, not cold, but like chilly here for like probably for most of March, I guess I would say. And so like having this, especially now that it's a little bit bigger and I can just kind of, you know, set it on my lap and I'll work on it, and it's like keeping my lap a little bit warmer, and like I'm kind of liking it. So I'm sure that once it warms up again, I'm probably gonna, you know, progress is gonna stall on it. But yeah, I've really been enjoying it. And the hook that I use is just what is it? It's a boy sort of like ergonomic squishy hook, and this is a D, which is a 3.125 millimeters, so 3 1/8 millimeters. So yeah, that's the hook that I use, and that's about it. So loving it. We'll see, I guess. So now, since I've just shown it off, I will go ahead and move my progress keeper up to my top row, and that way, whenever it is that I show it off again, we will know how much progress I've made. So progress keeper is now on the top. Yay. Okay, so that's it for works in progress. In terms of what's coming up next, I really don't know. Life is still just sort of crazy in some sort of weird ways. Like I've sort of been, I wanted to grab this and put this away. I've sort of been feeling this sense of overwhelmedness that's not really coming from anywhere. Like, you know, if I think about all the things that I actually have to get done, it's not that much stuff, but like every day I feel just a little bit overwhelmed sometimes. So, you know, simple things are really things that I'm enjoying right now. So I don't really know what's going to wind up being next. I would maybe like to do a little bit bigger project again, but not maybe a sweater. So I will definitely cast on another pair of socks once I finish, you know, one of these pairs of socks. But I think maybe I might do another shawl. Like maybe I'll start another shawl. I don't really know. I don't know. So, but I do know that like I would like something that's maybe not socks, but you know, not a sweater at the same time. So I guess we'll see what that winds up being when we come to it. But that's sort of what I'm thinking for what's coming up next. Nothing concrete, just sort of some vague ideas of what I'm looking for. So with that, let's talk about the one new thing I have to show off. I actually have another new thing which is coming in the mail that I'm super duper excited about, but it is not here yet. And so I guess I will show that off next week. But Friday was payday, and you know, like I said, life has been just a little bit vaguely overwhelming, and so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna treat myself. And so I bought myself some yarn, but it's not here yet, so I'll show you guys next week. But I can show you some yarn that I bought over spring break. So I'll talk about this more in the chit chat, but over spring break, I went to go visit my dad and my brother in Iowa. And my older brother took me to a couple of yarn stores. So they live in Iowa City. So we went to one yarn store, which is actually right in Iowa City, and then another one that is up in Mount Vernon, which was maybe like a 20 or 30-minute drive outside of the city. The one that we went to in Iowa City, I forget what it's called. I'll try and put the name somewhere. But I don't recommend it. Like it was... I just got like a really bad feeling, and I hate to like harsh on a yarn shop like that, but like it just, you know, we walked in and I don't even think that the people working said hi, and it was like a pretty big group of us. It was me and my brother and his lady friend and my dad, so it was a pretty big group of us walking in, and they like didn't say hi, didn't ask what we were looking for, like just pretty much ignored us completely, and just like the whole vibe of the place was just very... I didn't like it, so I don't recommend it. But the one in Mount Vernon, I do really recommend. And of course, I can't remember the name of it either, but I'll put the name somewhere. But it was great. It was like in a big old house, and so it was just, you know, it had a lot of charm in that way that those kind of yarn shops do, where it's like they're completely unique because of the location that they're in. You know, just like super close quarters, super cramped. Like the bottom story is like an art sort of gallery place. Like it was just really fun, and I loved it. And so I definitely recommend that one if you happen to be near Iowa City. But I wanted to pick up some yarn, so I picked up this yarn, and this is not like I think I've seen this brand before, so it's not like a super special, like, you know, locally dyed thing or anything, but I fell in love with it and I wanted a little bit of a souvenir from that place, so you know, this was what I wanted to get. And this is Araucania? I don't know. My brain is like not allowing this word to come out of my mouth. Huasco sock, and this is a 75-25 superwash merino nylon sock yarn. Yeah, so that's the label. I swear my brain is just like not making that word come out of my mouth right now. So let's take off the little price sticker. So this colorway is Brazilian teal. Oh, that's upside down. There we go. Brazilian teal. And let me go ahead and take the label off so I can show it to you. They actually had a couple different colorways of this yarn, but I really liked this one. So it's got this really bright blue pop on one end, and then it's got this sort of bright pink, and then this little solid gray splotch, and then the rest is sort of speckled blue and pink. And I just think I thought it was really pretty. I'm sure it's going to pool probably, although maybe not. Like these are pretty small splotches of color. But I just thought it was so pretty, and I really loved the sort of the play of the blue and the gray and the pink. And I just realized that one of our knit along themes is speckles. So maybe I will save this for that knit along, and it will be a really good yarn to do for speckles. But yeah, I just thought it was really gorgeous, and so I bought it, and it was only like $20. So, you know, not too mad about that. But that's the only new thing that I have right now. And then, like I said, I'll have something else new to show off next week, but I don't have it yet. And I have no dyeing to show off because I was, you know, gone for spring break, and then otherwise I was playing this sort of catch-up game that always happens when you know, go on a trip and then come back and you are a person that lives alone and now has to catch up on all the adulting that you didn't do while you were gone. So yeah, I have no dyeing to show off. So let's talk knit-alongs really quick. So we have two knit-alongs going on right now. One is sort of the normal knit-along, which is our botanical knit-along, which runs through March and April. So this is sort of, you know, the second in our normal sort of scheme of knit-alongs for 2018. The technique for this knit-along is lace, and the color is green. We already have a fair number of finished objects in the finished object thread, mostly because someone was making, and I forget who it was, but someone was making a ton of green St. Patrick's Day hats, so they were just like, it was really funny because like each picture, you know, they had the ever-growing pile of all of these hats as they showed off the new one, and I got such a kick out of it. I really loved that. And I hope you finished all of them in time. But yeah, otherwise we've had some good finished objects coming through. And if you want to see the rules for that, if you're watching this on Ravelry, just go back out to the group page, and the rules are in the Cal thread. Otherwise, if you are watching this on the blog or whatever, I always link to the chatter thread, which has the rules in it, so you can go there and check out the rules. And yeah, hope you participate in that. The other knit along that we have going on right now is the Exceedingly Vanilla Cal, and this is to celebrate the release of my vanilla sock pattern, which happened back at the beginning of the month, which seems like it's so long ago now. But basically the only rules for this knit along are that you have to knit a pair of socks using my sock pattern, which I will link. But yeah, it can be any yarn you want, any size you want, basically you just have to use my pattern. And so there's just one thread for that Cal. It's sort of a combined chatter finished object thread. So feel free to, pop in there for chatter stuff or pop your finished objects in there. I haven't figured out what the prize for that's going to be yet, but I have a little bit of time still because that knit along runs through April 15th. So, and the other one, the Botanical Cal, runs through the end of April, so that'd be April 30th. And I've shown off the prize yarn for that before. It's that really cool neon yarn that I bought when I went to Huntsville the first time. So I'm not going to go get that because it's in the other room and I forgot to grab it. But yeah, you guys have seen it before. So yeah, so that's that for the knit along stuff. Nothing super exciting on that front, just, kind of chugging along with everything. And I guess that brings us to question of the week. And I have I think a really good question of the week this week. And I'm hoping I haven't asked it before because this is the problem when you start to get up close to 100 episodes worth of a podcast is and because I've been doing this for 2.5-ish almost years now, is that it's I forget what's happened before because that's in the past. I don't remember that stuff. So hopefully I haven't asked this before, but even if I have, it has obviously been a long time. So my question of the week this week is, has there been any sort of technique aspect of your knitting or way that you knit, or crochet of course, that you have made a conscious effort to change something about the way that you knit or crochet? And as a concrete example for this, because I know that was maybe a little bit vague. So let me okay, I'll grab this. So I'll show you guys with this. So this applies to both my knitting and my crocheting, but I made a very conscious effort recently to change the way that I tension my yarn. So I used to tension my yarn. Let's see if I can get close enough to show you guys this. Okay, so this is my yarn, right? So I'll show this for knitting, but it's the same way with crocheting. It's just in the other hand. So when I knit, I hold the yarn in my right hand. This is my right hand. Of course, it's backwards to you guys, but this is my right hand. So the way that I used to tension the yarn was I used to take the yarn and I would wrap it around my pinky, and then now I have to think about it because I changed this relatively recently, but it's become so ingrained now that this feels really weird. I wrapped it around my pinky, and then I think I did it like this. So I would pass it sort of over the top of my pointer finger. But the point being that I wrapped it around the sort of base of my pinky like this and sort of choked out my pinky. But this was always the way that I used to tension my yarn, which worked fine, right? I didn't have any problems with it until I started trying to knit with fingerless mitts on. So if I grab a fingerless mitt, right? So now I have a fingerless mitt on, and now I tension my yarn like that. The yarn tends to get caught on the part of the fingerless mitt that comes up along your pinky, right? And of course I don't want to make shorter fingerless mitts because part of the point of me wearing fingerless mitts, especially when I'm knitting, is that I want to keep my knuckles warm, because if my hands get too cold, they just stop working. So this became an issue, and I was like, well, okay, something needs to change here. So I decided to make a very conscious effort to change the way that I tension my yarn. So now what I do is I tension it around the sort of, if you think about the joints on your fingers, right? So you have your knuckle that is on your hand, and then you have your first knuckle and your second knuckle, right? So I tension it on the part of my middle finger that is in between those two knuckles. So like this. So this is how I hold it. So I sort of use the rest of my fingers to grab the yarn down along the base of my other fingers, and then it comes along my middle finger like this, and then goes over the top of my pointer finger, and then I knit like normal. So I guess I didn't mention this, but I am is it English style knitter? I throw. So yeah, so this is how I hold my yarn. And I do the same thing when I crochet now. So on my other hand, if I was crocheting I would of course have the crochet hook in my right hand because I'm right-handed, and then I would tension my yarn over my middle finger on my left hand, and it comes up along the top of my pointer finger on my left hand, and then I, you know, do the crocheting thing. But that was something that it took weeks for it to like make sense in my brain. Like it was weeks of like this really conscious sort of thing where I had to like retrain sort of my brain on how to accept these feelings. And I think it was because you know, like your brain sort of maps sensations, and especially with your hands being like having a lot of nerve endings, your brain has to like remap these sensations that are coming from your hands into what it is that you're doing. So it took me a very long time to figure that out. But that was something that I made this very conscious effort to change, for the sake of not necessarily efficiency, but for the sake of like utility, like greater utility, I think. So my question is there anything like that you have done? Have you maybe tried to switch from being an English style to continental style knitter or something like that? Like, you know, or is there something maybe you'd like to try that with, but you know, you're just like, oh, that's a lot of effort. Like, is there something that you feel like you can optimize, but you're just not really ready to undertake that yet? So I'd love to hear on either side of that. But yeah, that's going to be it for the knitting. This clip has gotten very long, so hopefully it saves okay. But that's going to be it for the knitting stuff. So if that's all you were here for, thanks very much for hanging out with me. And I will see you hopefully next week. I don't think anything will keep me from recording next week. But otherwise, if you're interested in hearing about what I did over spring break, hang out and we'll get to that in just a second. So speaking of my crochet granny strap blanket, that's what I'm going to work on while we sit and chat. So yeah, I guess the sort of big thing that happened between when I recorded last and now is spring break. So spring break was not this past week, but the week before for us here at VCU. And yeah, so I worked the first half of spring break because just because it's a no class week does not mean that faculty have the week off. So I did have like work that needed to get done. So so I utilized the time that no one was around to get some work done that needed to be done. And then the second half of the week, I went to go see my dad and my brother. So I don't really have anything to show from that trip, other of course than the yarn that I bought. But I didn't really take any pictures. I didn't take any video, because like for me, I was using this trip as just sort of a chance to put my feet up and let someone else take care of me for a little while, because I haven't seen my dad since last August because I didn't go home for Christmas this year. So yes, I hadn't seen my dad in, I mean, not quite 6 months, but you know, is that 6 months? Maybe that's 6 months. I don't know. Time. I hadn't seen my dad in a long time, and I was very lucky in that my older brother's spring break actually followed mine. So like that's why I sort of planned the trip for later in the week so that, you know, he was basically done with his teaching while I was there, and then his spring break started. So he had lots of time to spend with me, and it was really nice because I actually spent probably more time with my older brother on this trip than I have in maybe the past 10 years. I don't know, like at least the most time in one go, right? Like in sort of one chunk, because, you know, he is a decent amount older than I am. And so by the time I went to college, he was already in grad school. And so like we've just always, you know, lived in different cities, like since I really became an adult, because of course, you know, before I went to college, he wanted nothing to do with me, not in a mean way, but like in that way that it's like, I have nothing in common with you. Like I can't talk to you, like you're a child. And it wasn't until, I mean, partly until I got to college, and then especially once I like went off to grad school and, you know, was a little bit older, that like he and I have actually gotten close now, because it's like, okay, now we have common interests, like now we can talk about things. So it was really great to be able to spend so much time with him, and obviously of course with my dad too. But yeah, it was just a chance to like let someone else take care of me and let someone else, you know, clean up after me and do all of that stuff, which maybe sounds really bad and selfish, but like, you know, of course my dad was so happy to see me that it didn't matter that I was messing up his pristine apartment, because he's a very tidy person. You know, he was just happy to have me there. And like, I think that one of the things that is very important when you sort of live by yourself like I do and depend only on yourself is that you need to take times like that where you don't have to take care of yourself. Because even if you take, say, a staycation right? Like you're still taking care of yourself unless you go to a hotel or something, right? Like I think it's really important for people who live alone to like take time like that where it's like, you know what? You don't have to clean up after yourself. Like you don't necessarily have to cook for yourself if you don't want to. Like obviously finances permitting, but like I think it's really like that's the only way you can actually have like a restful vacation. It's like staying at home like doesn't necessarily bring any rest because it's like, oh great, now I have to catch up on all these things at home. So long story short, it was a really great chance to do that. Ate lots of good food. I had my first ever falafel at this place that my brother took me to on campus that was amazing. He said it's the best falafel he's ever had, and he's had falafel all over the place. So I thought it was very good. It was the first falafel I've ever had, so far it is indeed the best. But it was really good. And I had the surreal experience of dipping falafel in hummus, which of course, if you don't know what falafel's made out of, it's made out of chickpeas. And hummus also made out of chickpeas. So that was very surreal and very meta. But yeah, it was really good. I got to eat some really delicious ice cream that my older brother got me. Apparently it's like one of his favorite kinds of ice cream there. And yeah, just hung out, you know, knitted, hung out with my dad, did all that cool stuff. Just didn't worry about the rest of my life for a couple of days. And then, so at the very end of the trip, like I said, my older brother's spring break sort of overlapped, you know, with that weekend with mine. And so he was already planning on going up to Minneapolis to stay with our mom for part of his spring break because he needed to do some stuff up in Minneapolis. And so I was like, oh, well, you know, would you want to drive up there on Sunday so that I could fly out of Minneapolis instead of having to fly out of, you know, an airport in Iowa? Because one, it's very expensive to fly out of any of the airports there. And two, if you can find an airport that is not expensive to fly out of, it's not at all close to where I was. And the nice thing about flying out of Minneapolis back to Richmond is that I could get a direct flight, which means I didn't have to worry about like, oh, you know, you made it to Atlanta, but now your flight out of Atlanta got canceled and now you're stuck in Atlanta overnight. And so it's like, if I can take a direct flight, I will take a direct flight. So we did that. And the bonus was that we were able to get up there early enough that my mom and my younger brother were able to come and meet us near the airport, and we were able to get a big family lunch, which was great because it was, you know, pretty close to my mom's birthday. So it was like a big birthday thing for her, and she was super excited because all of her kids were in one place at the same time, which is really rare for us. You know, when you have 3 children that live in 3 different states, yeah, not easy to get all of us in one place at one time. So yeah, and then of course I got on my plane and I flew back. And then I was back to work this week, you know, again, catching up on all the things that I, you know, just had sort of fallen behind on. Not like I was really behind, but and there was also just like, I also had the unfortunate circumstance that, so the day that I flew back from Iowa was Sunday the 11th, and that was daylight savings time, and so we lost an hour, right, whatever, because of the clocks moving forward, and then I lost another hour, literally lost another hour because of going from Central Time to Eastern Time. So like on Monday, my brain just had no clue what time it was. It was like, what time zone are you even in? Like, what's going on here? So yeah, so that was kind of rough, but otherwise it was a pretty standard sort of week, you know, back to the grind. I'm trying to think of, it was so standard that like I can't really even think of like what was going on. Like it was just like, okay, it's a normal week. The one really cool thing that did happen this past week is my friend who I made the like it's 1999 socks for, and the socks on a plane, and I dyed her some yarn, that friend, she defended her PhD thesis on Friday and she passed, so I'm so excited for her. It was a really great defense. Like I haven't seen that many PhD defenses, but I have seen a fair amount of the master's defenses. Because of course I wind up knowing the master's students better because they're the TAs that I work with most of the time. And so I have been to a fair number of those, and I have seen really, really good ones and really, really poor ones. So I feel like I have some sense of like how bad it can be. And my friend was like really worried. Like she was very worried about like how hers was going to go, and that, you know, she was going to sort of, you know, be really nervous, and then it was going to be really obvious that she was really nervous. And I didn't think so at all. Like I was like, you like destroyed that. So I was super proud of her, and that was just very exciting. So now every time I see her, I'm going to be like, doctor, because that's just really cool, and she totally earned it, and she totally deserves it. So yes, I did that, or well, she did that. That was a thing that occurred. And then this weekend, I've just been adulting pretty hard, you know, doing meal prep, that whole thing. What else have I done this weekend? I went up today to meet with a former student of mine who's also the president of the physics club. I am the advisor for the physics club. So we were meeting this morning to kind of talk about like some funding proposals that we have to put forward already for fall semester, because like that's coming up, which like that has been a thing that is just like crazy, because they've also put up the schedule for fall semester, like the teaching schedules. And so I already know what classes I'm teaching for fall, and like it makes sense because like you kind of have to assume that the summer is a wash, because of course most faculty are 9-month faculty, so they don't work, like their contract does not extend into the summer. They do not work over the summer. And I'm one of the rare cases where I'm a 12-month faculty member because I have to work over the summer, right? Like labs run over the summer, which means I have to be there over the summer. But like, you know, because you kind of have to like just not count the summer, and you know, of course you have to like have students register for fall classes in the spring, you know, you have to start making preparations for fall semester like crazy early. So, you know, while it seems like, oh, you know, fall itself, like August is so far away, although it's, I mean, it's like 4 months, you know, it seems like that's like a really long way away. But like when you think about where we are in relation to the end of this semester, you know, we have, how many more weeks do we have? We have 6 more weeks, maybe 6 more weeks, and then like finals or something, like not very long at all. And so that has been something that has just been sort of weird to be thinking about lately, like trying to already plan ahead to fall, and of course summer too, because like I said, my job does continue over the summer, and I need to be thinking about like, how am I running labs over the summer? Like, am I going to be revising experiments for the summer? You know, stuff like that. So it's just been really crazy to all of a sudden be like, oh, I have to start planning for things that seem like they're really far away, but they are definitely not. But yeah, so that's basically been sort of how things are. This next week is going to be a pretty standard week again. I am super excited because I have a massage scheduled for tomorrow. It turns out like they just recently started offering massages through the campus gym, which was something that I used to take advantage of when I was in grad school at Nebraska. They did the same thing where like it was through the rec center, you could schedule massages, and the massage therapists were employed by the rec center, so it was a set price, and it was a really good price too. And you know, there's no tipping, which I'm not saying that massage therapists don't deserve to get tipped, but like it's always sort of stressful to like figure out like how much am I supposed to tip them, and especially when you go to like sort of a, I don't know, like a private massage massage studio or whatever, like they're not cheap already. And then like when you have to add in, you know, a 10, 15, 20% tip, whatever the standard is, like now it's like, okay, I'm paying $100 for an hour's massage, and I'm not saying that they don't deserve that, but it's just like this gets really expensive really fast. And so apparently not apparently, they have now started offering massages at the rec center on campus. So I was like, let's see how this goes. Like, we'll see if it's worth the amount that I'm paying for it. I mean, it's pretty cheap. So I'm super duper excited for that because I love getting massages. Because, you know, I just, not to sound like too woo-woo about it, because I think it can sound really woo-woo, but like I do believe that there is something really important and fundamental and sort of very healing about the power of human touch. So yeah, so I'm just really excited for it, and if it turns out to be good, if the person I see is good, then the nice thing is that the price is such that like I could do this, you know, on a monthly basis if I really wanted to keep doing it. So that's really exciting. But otherwise it's just going to be a pretty standard week, and yeah, not much else. I'm trying to think of what else I've really been doing lately, but there's not a whole lot. It's mostly just been work, just doing the work thing. So maybe that's where I will end it this week. Yeah, again, sorry if I was a little bit discombobulated. I'm tired. Like, I'm not sleepy, but like I can tell that I'm just tired, like haven't gotten enough sleep. And so that's just no good. So I guess I'll have to go to bed early tonight. But otherwise, yeah, I'm just gonna have a chill rest of the afternoon, enjoy the sunshine that's coming in through the window, and do the things. So thank you very much for hanging out with me this week. I hope that you had a good week, and I hope that wherever you are, things are gonna warm up soon, because I know it's been very cold and snowy in a lot of places, so that's no fun. But I hope you had a good week. I hope you have a good week, and I will see you guys hopefully next week. See ya. Bye.